He's going to be ready to come right out the gates, and he's going to be a very high pick when we get to that draft in Green Bay.
To run. He's got the end zone. Sanders down the field.
Cam Ward to throw. Into the end zone.
Ward's going to take off.
Diving.
Shot out of a cannon, coming off the edge.
Under heat. Lost the football, put it on the ground.
Matthew Golden for 6.
And all too easy, Matthew Golden, because he jumps off the tape.
Lacerating that offensive front. Genty with some room. Powers his way, breaking tackles. Still on his feet. Nobody open. He's sacked all the way back. Abdul Carter.
Shante Barron the takeaway. Outfield, and it is intercepted.
Wow, what a wrinkle. Tyler Ward. Caught. Touchdown.
Again, fires. End zone. Hunter caught it.
Throws for Hunter. He'll walk in for 6.
It's that time of the year. It's mock season. Welcome to Mock Draft Live. It is presented by Toyota, Mike and Bucky Brooks. Man of the hour is Lance Zierlein. His mock is the centerpiece of today's show. You took some heat last week.
Oh, I know, but Lance, welcome to the Player Haters Ball.
Yeah.
Buck Nash in the field.
Hate.
Lance, by the way, thank you. And we will get through this, but before we even get to your mock, I want to thank you because I get access to it. I'm going through it. And I see some trades. Mm-hmm. I love seeing trades in mock, and you don't have just one. You got a couple in yours.
Yeah, I mean, I did that for you, Yam, because I was like, you know what Mike Yam hates? Non-trades and mock drafts. And so I intentionally put some in there. It got a little spicier at the end of the draft, but every draft has trades in the first round. I'm not sure we're going to see as many early round trades as usual, but I do think later in the draft we are going to start seeing some trades.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because I thought I would sort of tease the fact that the number 1 overall pick wouldn't be the Tennessee Titans. That's not the case. In fact, as we get to Lance's mock and we start with that number 1 overall pick, Lance, it's starting to feel like there's a consensus here with Cam Ward.
It is. I mean, look, it's a position of need. He's the best quarterback in this draft. You tie them together, you've got a brand new ecosystem over there in Tennessee. And one of the things you like to do is tie new coach, new general manager, new quarterback together. So, that's what they're doing. And this is a talented quarterback to do it with. I think Cam Ward has the ability to be a good starter in the NFL. And I think he's uniquely positioned to step into the league and kind of be battle tested. And that's one of the reasons I like him here.
You've been on record. It's Cam Ward at number 1 and not a quarterback at number 2. You think the Browns are going defense?
Yeah, I just think, one of the things that Andrew Berry's going to love is production, and he's analytics driven. I don't think he's going to reach for a quarterback. I think what he does is tries to take the pass rush and multiply it. And what Abdul Carter is a multiplier force. He's a force multiplier with Myles Garrett. And one of the best ways to win if you don't have a great offense is to have a great pass rush. And that's what you have with Abdul Carter.
Well, when I saw your mock, I immediately saw Carter at 2, and I go, well, the Giants then will take a quarterback at 3. No. It's actually another Colorado guy, though. It's Travis Hunter.
No, sir. We're going with one of the most dynamic players. We're going with the most dynamic player in this draft, and Travis Hunter. And what I like about this is that, I don't know that you have your quarterback. You don't have the quarterback of the future, but you have a top-flight cornerback now who can step over along with Malik Neighbors and cause havoc on the offensive side as well. So, depending on how the Giants want to use him, I just think he's going to help potentially on both sides.
It's Mason Graham as we skip ahead to number 5. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you and Buck both had him getting selected in this spot.
Yeah, Mason Graham is a player for me who I just think he's really safe. I'm not sure that he has a Pro Bowl ceiling like some people think, but I also think that he's one of the safest players in this draft. He's going to be a pain to block every single snap. His effort level and urgency is fantastic. He doesn't let you have a snap off, and I just think he's what Jacksonville needs in the middle of that defense.
All right, moving on to Jalen Walker here. The Raiders not going to roll with Ashton Genty like Buck had it a week ago. Instead, you're going with the linebacker.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. I thought what would Tom Brady want to do here in this spot? And all I could think about was those Bill Belichick locker rooms when they built a dynasty, and it was getting the right kind of guys in the locker room. And Jalen Walker is the right kind of guy. He can rush. He can play linebacker. He's got great football character. He's a tremendous leader. I think he's a culture builder at the very beginning of the Raiders with Tom Brady over there in ownership.
Let's take a closer look at Lance's top picks, 1 through number 6. By the way, the Patriots at number 4 going with Will Campbell, according to Bucky Brooks. The number 1 offensive tackle, started 38 games at LSU, which is certainly going to be a nice force for a Patriots team that's made some moves. But the guy that's got my attention, it's Carter at 2.
Dart under heat, lost the football. He got hit by Abdul Carter to the 26. Abdul Carter, the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. Nowhere to go. Boy, look at Abdul Carter lacerating that offensive front. But he's sacked all the way back to the 26.
This kid is special, man.
He is special enough where you could actually make the case for him to be the number 1 overall pick. There's now all of a sudden these mocks are coming out, and you're seeing more buzz around him maybe going to the Cleveland Browns and then passing on a guy like Shedeur Sanders, for example. Why make the switch? Is he that good where you can pass it at quarterback and go with a defensive player?
Well, you always want someone that can impact the passing game one way or the other. So sometimes it's quarterback, other times it's pass rusher, and he is a disruptive and dominant pass rusher. When you look at the tape, there's so many things to love about his tape. First thing you look for, first step quickness, explosive burst. You see the speed coming off the edge. And then can you dip and rip? Can you bend, burst, get to the quarterback? He does that, has all the finesse moves that you want to see. But it's more than that part of his game. First step quickness, being able to just get past the initial defender and get into the backfield quickly. But it's also being a sideline-to-sideline menace. Lance has compared him to Michael Parsons in terms of being able to do unique things as an on-scrimmage pass rusher or an off-the-ball linebacker. He has those things, and I just think Jim Schwartz would be so excited to be able to have 2 dominant guys on the front line. And you throw in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. You talk about putting together a defense that can be dominant, and with the quarterbacks that you face in the AFC North, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and maybe even Aaron Rodgers, you want people that can heat him up. You can heat him up with Abdul Carter being in the lineup.
All right, Lance, who's the comp?
Well, I mean, it's Micah Parsons. Look, it may be lazy. It's Penn State 11s, but I don't think so, because every one of those things that Bucky just looked at in that videotape, in that highlight tape, the quick first step, the bend and the burst, the pursuit range, that's all Micah Parsons. The ability to get under the block, the ability to impact the pocket, the range to go sideline to sideline. Micah was a linebacker coming out, and they said, we got some injuries at defensive end. Can you rush the passer like in high school? Can I? I'm an all-pro is what I am right now. So I think when you look at Abdul Carter's game, my guess is he could be a linebacker if you wanted to. He's not going to work out. We're not going to see how fast he is, but he's plenty fast. He's got that first step quickness. He is a disruptive player like Micah Parsons, and they're not just both Penn State number 11s. They have unique athletic ability that allows them to disrupt at a very high level.
All right, Lance, from 2 to 3, and you and I had a long conversation about what the Giants should do. In your mock, it is Travis Hunter, but explain to me how Brian Daboll uses this guy who is a two-way player in college, and quite frankly, the Giants have some needs on both offense and defense.
Yeah, for me, he played 2,600 snaps over the last 2 years. That is a ton of football. So what I'm going to do, he's going to be a little over 180 pounds. It's a physical game. I think there's more value right now taking some snaps at wide receiver and playing full-time at cornerback to be able to make the plays that he does, flip the field, challenge the football at the high point. His instincts, his range, his ball skills, they're just absolutely phenomenal. And I think what you get there, you can just flip on the other side for about 10 snaps a game at wide receiver and still have an impact, whether he's making plays or just allowing the defense to give a little more attention to him and maybe a little less to Malik Neighbors. So I'm playing him at cornerback first, and then I'm letting him have some snaps at wide receiver if I'm the Giants. Now, if I went to the Browns, I might be playing him at wide receiver first. So kind of depends on who takes him.
So here's the thing. The old scout in me would say, hey, put him on defense. He's over 6 feet. He has long arms. He'd be a perfect shutdown type corner to put on the perimeter. But the fun guy wants to see him touch the ball. And I think there are a lot of people in that New York Giants building that understands we have to put points on the board. And Travis Hunter is someone that can put the ball in the paint. Not completely polished as a route runner, but he's a playmaker. And sometimes you just want to give these guys multiple opportunities to find ways to create those explosive plays. Remember, they haven't had an exciting playmaker in New York on the perimeter since Odell Beckham Jr. This would create that kind of buzz and energy that I believe the fans of New York would like to see. Put Travis Hunter on offense, even though I say that he probably can be a dynamic defensive player.
Wow, him and Neighbors. By the way, at home as a dad, are you fun dad or strict dad?
Ooh, I would probably be more fun dad than anything. I don't like a whole lot of yelling.
If that is the case, then maybe we see more Travis Hunter on the offensive side, paired up with Russ cooking with obviously Malik Neighbors. The other team in New York is the Jets, and we got a little protection, Lance, for their new quarterback in Justin Fields.
Yeah, look, we got to get a run blocker with the Jets at right tackle. We need a right tackle of the future. I think Mimbu can do that. I'm really high on him. I think he has some really good tape. I think his size, his toughness, his ability to block with the run and get better in pass pro makes him one of the better potential tackles in this draft.
Moving on to number 8, the Panthers adding to their defense. Mykel Williams is a guy that has generated a ton of buzz over the last couple weeks.
This was the hardest pick for me in the whole draft. It's very difficult to figure out what the Panthers are going to do if you take Jalen Walker off the board. But I think Mykel Williams has the upside. He has the length. He has the pro projections that you're looking for. Is it going to happen next year? I don't think it happens next year. But I do think in terms of where he's going to be, this is not a next year team, Carolina. They are a 2, 3, 4 years down the road team. And I think he's that type of player with that type of upside.
You know, this is starting to feel like the antithesis of what we saw last year, Lance, with regard to your mock. A ton of offensive players a year ago, and you got another defensive player. You're 6 in the first 9 picks.
Yeah, Jihad Campbell's an interesting one because I just think he's a really unique fit for what Brandon Staley wants to do as a defensive coordinator, bringing that 3-4 over there. He wants somebody that can really run. He wants somebody that can cover and rush the passer. I know we talk about Jihad Campbell at linebacker, but if you really pay attention to the tape, I think he's better dropping in coverage and rushing the passer. He's better as a 3-4 outside linebacker, and he's uniquely suited to what Brandon Staley likes to do.
All right, a little bit more on Campbell in just a moment here, but a closer look at the range for Campbell in a lot of our mocks. DJ and Lance have him with the 9th overall pick. Bucky, you and CD have him 19th overall, but it's time for Going Places. It is presented by Toyota. It should also be noted, from mock 2.0 to 3.0 for you, Lance, he moves up 17 spots. Explain to me why such a massive jump at this point.
Yeah, it's a fair question. And I always try to tell people these mock drafts, once I get past mock 1, I'm trying to put together mocks that I think, the teams might do, what may actually happen. And I think no matter where I might have Jihad Campbell as a linebacker, I think what you have to do is anticipate what a team needs and how that team plays. And I think, as I mentioned with Brandon Staley, when you look at how he plays the 3-4 defense and what suits Jihad Campbell as a player, he could go as high as 9 to New Orleans. And when you look at him right here, it's about explosiveness. Look at this closing kick right here. He closes you out before you know it. So whether he is a sub rusher who, by the way, once he adds a few more moves, he's going to be a nightmare. His ability to dip and corner is going to make him a really, really valuable rusher. I think the Saints are going to see that and really project him as a guy who could be a double-digit sack guy. But he can also drop in coverage. He has really good instincts and ball skills in coverage too. So I'm not trying to put him where I think he should go. I'm trying to put him where I think he will go. And I think he could go as high as the Saints. I didn't want to put him there, but as the dominoes kept falling, I said, you know what? The Saints make a lot of sense here.
It makes a lot of sense in a few different reasons. One, Cam Jordan is getting older, so you need to have a young pass rusher in the fold, someone that can get after the quarterback and make it happen. Secondly, because he can play off-the-ball linebacker, Demario Davis is also getting older. For the Saints, Brandon Staley coming over, trying to figure out how to take the pieces on the chessboard and make them work. Jihad Campbell is uniquely talented to really impact the game in a variety of ways. It would make sense. It's up there, top 10 pick. But he certainly has a skill set that is intriguing, and it does fit what the Saints need.
I know I made reference to it, the fact that we're seeing all these defensive players off the board according to Lance. You know what that means? There's some skill position guys ready to rock and roll. In fact, one of the biggest names, who could have been a Heisman Trophy winner, Ashton Denty, still hanging around. But yeah, something tells me when we come back, we're going to see some of these offensive players off the board. Where Genty goes, that answer is coming up next on Mock Draft Live. 2025 NFL Draft presented by Bud Light. It starts in just a couple weeks. You can catch all 7 rounds, 3 days, live from Green Bay, Wisconsin. It all kicks off Thursday, April 24th in prime time on NFL Network and NFL Plus. You can visit NFL.com/draft for more information. Going through Lance Zierlein's mock draft, it's 3.0. Ashton Genty, here we go. You think he's Chicago bound?
Yeah, Genty, let's go. Chicago Bears, the best way you can help out Caleb Williams. Look, you've already updated your offensive line in the offseason. Good job, Ryan Poles. Now we're going to get him a running back, and not just a running back, the running back in this draft. And I think one of the guys who will set himself apart in the NFL very, very quickly. I think what he does is he takes a tremendous amount of pressure off Caleb Williams, and in a way that will re-energize Caleb Williams from a swagger standpoint. And I think the Bears could take a big jump with Genty there if they can grab him at number 10.
A special talent. Meanwhile, there's some speed heading to Dallas and Matthew Golden.
Matthew Golden, man, is there a bigger riser in the draft? I don't think so. Matthew Golden, over the second half of the season, was fantastic. And, you know, he ran that incredible time at the Combine, 4.29. He is making plays on the football throughout the season. And when you look at the Dallas Cowboys wide receiving core outside of CeeDee Lamb, it's simply not good enough. I wanted to go in a different direction for the Cowboys, but as I try to think for the Cowboys, I said, you know what? Let's go get a guy who can make plays. We're spending a lot of money on quarterback. We've got to continue to bolster our offense in that NFC East. We're going Matthew Golden here at 12.
In Indianapolis, Lance, I don't know who the quarterback is going to be because there is a competition with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, but potentially a nice target here in a tight end, Tyler Warren.
Well, your boy almost broke the internet by throwing Shedeur Sanders here at number 14 to the Colts. But instead, what I decided to do is I just played the safe pick, Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren is another really safe player. He's physical. He's tough. He's got all the game-making plays that you want. He's not a spectacular game breaker, but he's a playmaker, and he knows how to do it in a variety of ways. And I just think he's uniquely suited to help Anthony Richardson. He's a big target with a good catch radius. And I think he's someone that Anthony Richardson can rely on as a safety blanket to go along with the other, offensive weapons they have there in Indianapolis.
You know what's fascinating? A year ago, Sam Darnold had some great offensive pieces around him in Minnesota. He's now a member of the Seattle Seahawks, and T-Mac could certainly help the cause.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I did that, Yam. I just said, look, Cooper Kupp, that's nice. Valdez-Scantling, that's fine. He runs fast in a straight line. I got to get somebody a little bit more dynamic for the guy we just spent some money on. So let's go get a wide receiver that's not a short-term solution. This is a long-term solution at X. Let's go get Ted McMillan. He can make plays down the field. He can make plays short. I think he's got the ability to become a high-volume target.
Let's go through and recap Lance's Mock 3.0, picks 10 through 18. Mike Green's a guy that if you watch the film, I know the three of us all really like him. Adam Marshall led FBS play with 17 sacks, certainly a game wrecker on the defensive side.
Aller floats it in the back of the end zone. Jump ball for Tyler Warren. Touchdown.
Rabula will throw it. Caught. Touchdown. Wow, what a wrinkle, Tyler Warren. It's just so difficult playing this beast of a tight end.
Tyler Warren, touchdown.
And the big Zamboni is really dialing it up now for Penn State.
You know, on NFL Network and NFL Plus, we had coverage of Penn State's Pro Day. Abdul Carter did not work out. Tyler Warren did not work out. Baldy was able to catch up with both of those guys. Got enough film here. Why is this dude so special?
Well, look, half man, half amazing. When we talk about a guy that was a high school quarterback that has transitioned to be able to do-it-all playmaker for the Penn State Nittany Lions, you have to love what you see on tape. And what I see on tape is something that is really unique, very creative in the way that he used him. Talking about in the Wildcat, being able to make all kinds of plays as a runner, can then make it and be a seam runner to make big plays down there, can do all the things that you want to see in the passing game. Great hands, great hand-eye coordination, excellent route runner, big body playmaker, and when he gets the ball in his hands. The reason why he wears 44, for you old heads out there, John Riggins used to play for Washington. That physicality and toughness, then he'll block inline. He has a lot of tools and traits that you love to see in a traditional wide tight end. That is why he could be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, and you know, Bucky, the two names that really kept popping when I was watching his tape because of the way he played a little bit was Jeremy Shockey and Greg Olson, two guys from the U. Wow. And Shockey, because he's got that mentality, he had that swagger, that confidence that really just jumped off the field when he was at Miami. And then, of course, you know, when you look at Greg Olson, I mean, he was just a player who was just very, very well-rounded and had a big impact on the game as a pass catcher. And I think Tyler Warren, he's not a perfect fit play comp wise with either player, but I think he has elements of both of those players in his game. And, you know, everything that we've seen from him throughout the year and in this highlight reel is who he is. He makes plays in a variety of ways, and he's a winner. I think he's a winner. He does the things that needs to be done to win football games. And it's something the Colts really need to have right now plugged in because, honestly, I mentioned this, you know, I mentioned having that type of a security blanket, and it's very important for quarterbacks across their careers. You see a lot of young quarterbacks that have come in and needed a good tight end to help them really establish themselves early on.
Yeah. By the way, and I think people can see the school record 104 receptions. Not only was that historic from a Penn State perspective, tied for the second most in FBS play a season ago. But we get back on the defensive train here. Jamar Stewart is a guy that you really like, Buck. In fact, he's your number one edge player at that defensive end spot. Lance, why do you like him at 19?
Well, I kind of like him for what Todd Bowles wants to do. I know that Jason Light a lot of time goes for production first, and that's the knock on Jamar Stewart. But when you watch him move, when you see physically what he looks like, when you see all the elements and you piece them together, the only piece that's missing is production. And I remember people batting Myles Garrett around a little bit for having low production headed into his into the draft. Now, this kid isn't Myles Garrett, but he's pretty much built like it, and I think he has some of those elements. Omarion Hampton, I'll jump on this right now because this is a guy who runs like a runaway train. I mean, the brake lines are cut with Omarion Hampton, and the Denver Broncos need a running back. It goes back to what we talked about with Caleb Williams. I want to get somebody who can take pressure off my young quarterback and who can complement my offense. You can give him 28 carries, and that's not a problem. The 28th carry is going to be run as hard as the first carry.
I know I don't need to really get you going to talk about a Carolina kid.
I just look at those uniforms, I fall in love all over again. I mean, I just do. It's just such a pretty uniform. It's just such a pretty uniform, and then you got a guy like him running downhill. I had an opportunity to spend some time in Chapel Hill over the course of the weekend, and they rave about him within the program. They talk about him being a workforce guy, a guy who had back-to-back seasons with over 1,500 yards, and they say they didn't give him the ball enough. The more that he touches it, the better that he gets. And some of the things that you haven't fully been able to see, catching the ball out the backfield, being a little more dynamic in space, he has all those things. Really good player. Look, RB1 all day. There are people that are going to talk about this guy being really special when we have opportunity to see him at this level.
You got a little choked up talking about those uniforms and talking about a kid that had close size on.
Almost a tear to my eye.
Lance, who's the comp?
Well, you know, it's kind of tough finding comps. I think there's elements of his game that remind me of beast mode with how physical he is. Wow. He runs a little bit like Ramondre Stevenson, but the guy that I thought brought it all together was DeMarco Murray, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys. And, you know, he's a little bit upright like Hampton can be, but he was physical. He has good speed in a straight line. He tested really well at the combine, the same thing Omarion Hampton did. And he's built to take on heavy workloads and produce at a high level. And that includes the touchdown count. So when you look at the body type, you look at the running style, the physicality, the speed, I think Murray is an interesting comp when you think about Omarion Hampton. But I just can't stress this enough. Hampton has some of the most violent finishes that I have ever studied, and it's something worth noting because, you know, you worry a little bit about durability, but he's had no issues with that up to this point, and you're going to take the worst of it most times you run into Omarion Hampton if you're a tackler.
You know, I watched a ton of Carolina games this past season. He is, I think one of you guys mentioned the word freight train. Totally accurate. And by the way, Lance, for you, this is a riser. You didn't have him in your first round of your mock draft 2.0. So this is a guy that, as you continue to assess the tape and look for fits, you think could find himself in round number 1. But keep in mind, the conversation around the draft, it's not just what we do here on Mock Draft Live. Buck, you're pulling a little double duty here. Path to the draft. It's back. Our experts inside the film room to show you which prospects are rising up draft boards. They got evaluations to draft needs on all 32 teams. We've got you covered weeknights, 6 Eastern on NFL Network and streaming on NFL Plus. Or if you're an astute fan, you'll realize 20 picks in, that dude hasn't been selected. No Shedeur Sanders. What's that about? Something tells me that's going to change. To where he goes, according to Lance, that's still to come. Back here on Mock Draft Live, Mike and Bucky Brooks and Lance Zierlein, we're examining his Mock Draft 3.0. And we got a trade here. Lance, do you think the Rams are going to try to move up with the Steelers, move up 5 spots to take another corner?
I mean, you know what Les Snead thinks about your picks. He's willing to trade them. I think that's what the T-shirt said. And so we're going to move up and we're going to take Jahdae Barron. They need cornerback help. The thing I love about Barron, not only is his playmaking ability, but he can play in the slot. He can play outside. So it gives you that versatility. In today's NFL, that's very important.
At number 22, and we'll talk more about Barron in just a moment here, Harbaugh dipping into that Michigan pool. Tight end, Colston Loveland.
Yeah, you know, Colston Loveland, look, I know last time I had Kenneth Grant, a Michigan Wolverine, going. This time I got Colston Loveland. I know it's Michigan, and I know you may think it's lazy, but it fits a big need. You need a pass catcher. You want to be able to run the football. Loveland is a try-hard blocker. He is a good pass catcher. He can get down the field and stretch the field. It answers a couple of different things here offensively for him, and there's a familiarity. There's no extra work that needs to be done by Jim Harbaugh and that Charger staff. They know the kid.
All right, the next pick, and it's nice because we've been doing this show for a couple weeks here. We got a new name. East Carolina corner Savon Ravel is going to Green Bay.
Yeah. You know, I didn't anticipate putting him in the first round, and the more I looked at this, and I started thinking about it, big, long, fast. He can make plays on the football. This is something that these kind of players rise in the process, and I think we'll start seeing his name a lot more in the first round because he has the traits, he has the tools, and every time you watch these Exos features that we have, you see players where you go, man, this guy's really, really good. Yeah, he is really good. He got hurt this year, or I think he would have more talk about being in the first round. So it was time for me to put him in there at a big position of need with Jaire Alexander probably leaving Green Bay, if not this year, certainly in the near future.
Yeah, it sort of strikes that balance of trying to find the next generation of player that can also help you out in the short term as well. I want to get back to the trade. We started the show talking about some moves that Lance had in his mock. The first one that we saw was the Rams moving up to go and grab Barron. Move up 5 spots according to Lance with the Steelers. Do you like the move?
I do like the move. I like the move because the Rams have been really, really good with young DBs on the field, and having a high IQ player that can play in the slot or out wide will only enhance what they want to do on defense. Chris Shula did a great job year one, but to go to the next level, more playmakers, more hands on the ball, more turnovers, takeaways, because that really impacts the bottom line. Jahdae Barron is someone with outstanding instincts, awareness, versatility. He fits the culture that the Rams have established.
Yeah, I think the Rams still feel like they're ready to win right now. So, you know, find a guy who you can plug in right now who can make a difference, you know, in an increasingly energetic NFC when it comes to the quarterback play.
By the way, win right now. They're a couple plays removed from maybe even getting to the Super Bowl, and they go and they get Devontae Adams. Like, this team is going to be one of the forces heading into this upcoming season. Now, I know we're talking about trades. We got another one for you. Lance, you like the Browns jumping back into the first round and finding that quarterback.
Sanders, end zone, caught! Touchdown!
It is Sanders, and he will waltz in. Touchdown. The Buffs lead for the first time. End zone for Shepard. That's a big hug, and he still came down with it. Sanders down the field, and a wide open Hunter. Unbelievable.
Fires, got a man!
Sanders to run. He's got the end zone.
I don't want to say polarizing, but Lance is now a polarizing pick. You got Sanders, not even in the top 20 here, but you do have him in this first round going 24 to the Browns.
Yeah, it's up from my last mock. I had him at 29 with the Browns trading up. Look, it's tough. It's really tough to place him because you talk around the people around the league and they think he could go from third pick, you know, to out of the first round. So it's a really tough projection. I just think if you're the Browns, the ability to get Abdul Carter and then come back up with some of your extra picks and go grab your quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, I just think that's the best course of action. I do think Shedeur Sanders can end up being a good starting quarterback. I think he needs the right elements around him. but they've got the draft picks to maneuver around a little bit if they want in Cleveland.
All right, this is fascinating. And Lance, you've given us some fodder the last couple weeks because you're right, he is up in this mock. You had him at 29 at one point. Charles Davis, you and Buck, I should say Buck, you and CD have him number 2 overall. And Daniel Jeremiah has him as the 3rd overall pick, which is going to be fascinating to see how this thing plays out. Time for Draft Builders. It is presented by Lowe's. What's this dude's ceiling?
Look, I think this guy, it's so funny because when you throw comps out there, like people are going to get mad, but I always want to compare him to a Pro Bowl caliber player. So if I told you that he could play like Geno Smith on the high end, he could play like maybe a baby version of Joe Burrow, you would be excited about it. The thing that you're going to have to get comfortable with when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, he's not going to give you all the other pizzazz plays that you've seen some of the elite guys like the Lamar Jacksons, the Pat Mahomes, and Josh Allen give you. But what he is going to do, he's going to deal from the pocket. This is a pro-style quarterback with great touch, timing, and anticipation. Fist the ball in the tight windows, has enough athleticism to maneuver within the pocket, but his eyes are always down the field. People are talking about under pressure. Took a ton of sacks. Yeah. Tough as nails, continues to still deliver darts. I made the comparison when I wrote about him a couple weeks ago. I said, look, when I watch him, he reminds me a lot of when I was a kid watching Greg Maddux paint the corners of the plate for the Braves. He's not overpowering you with the fastball, but he's consistently dealing because he can understand and control the location. That is Shedeur Sanders. Right offense, right environment, right playmakers around him. This is a high-end player who knows how to play winning football. May not wow you physically all the time, but we talk about moving an offense down the field and running the game. Shedeur Sanders does it better than anybody else.
Yeah, location and change-up, Lance, for Maddux.
Yeah. And Bucky's right. You can't, people get caught up in where somebody has a player in a mock draft. It's really about where you go and how you play once you get there. And I think for the Browns, you've got to do this the right way. But with Shedeur Sanders, the elements that I always bring up, because they're always so important, is poise, accuracy, and confidence. And he has all those elements. From the pocket, he never gets rattled. He has good pocket mobility, much better pocket mobility to slide around than people give him credit for. I don't think he's as mobile as getting out of the pocket and hurting with you as his legs, as some hype videos will try to they're putting out there on social media will lead you to believe. But I think if Shedeur is Shedeur and doesn't try to be something that that he's not really built to be, I think he's got a chance to be a good quarterback in the league. And Geno Smith is a great example of someone he can be. I think he should aspire to be Jared Goff as well, maybe even aspire to be a C.J. Stroud. These are all guys who play similarly to how Shedeur Sanders plays.
By the way, if your mock, Lance, is accurate, Cleveland fans should be thrilled because you get a quarterback in round number 1 after you trade in and Abdul Carter with the 2nd overall pick. You walk away and you kind of feel like you should have a smile on your face. By the way, closer eyes on Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. That Colorado showcase, we got you covered in front of the scouts and the GMs Friday. It's Patch of the Draft, then the Colorado showcase, live at a special time, 2:30 Eastern, right here on NFL Network. Closer look at picks 21 through 26 for Lance and this mock draft. I know we didn't name check him, but Donovan Jackson going to Houston. This is a guy, according to PFF, allowed 0 sacks and no quarterback hits in all 4 CFP games this past season. So against big boy competition, he held up in a meaningful way. More to come here, though. The last few picks in Lance Zierlein's latest mock draft 3.0. And he's got more trades. Yes, which team is going to go grab another quarterback named Jackson Dart? The answer to that is coming up next. Back here on Mock Draft Live, Bucky Brooks, Mike Yam, and Lance Zierlein as we examine, Lance, your Mock Draft 3.0 and the safety out of South Carolina, Nick Emenwari, going to the Ravens.
I mean, if this isn't the most fun pick of this mock draft, I don't know what is. You're going to plug him in with Kyle Hamilton. So one guy is an absolute killer as a hitter and a force player. The other guy has rare elite size, explosiveness, speed, and that's Nick Emenwari. But he's really good on the back end. He can range, he can make plays on the football. And so I think what it allows you to do is stick Nick Emenwari on the back end and let Kyle Hamilton come back down and play in the slot play robber position. They're both interchangeable safeties, so it really creates havoc for offensive coordinators figuring out how they want to scheme against them.
You know, if you want to tell me that's a Ravens pick, this one to me screams like the Lions, going with the Oregon tackle Josh Connerly Jr. Why do you like him?
You know, it's funny because when I looked at this, I wanted to go defensive line, but I just went off the board. So what I did is I said, you know what? They need a left guard. And while we're at it, we're going to replace our left guard with young Josh Connerly. And I'm going to look towards the future when Taylor Decker is gone from left tackle, I'm going to bump Connerly back out to left tackle. So I got a player with high football character that Brad Holmes is going to like. And then we're going to, go guard to center potentially with Connerly.
The Commanders had a surprise season a year ago, certainly ahead of what I think a lot of people had thought. And Ole Miss corner Trey Amos, a little more firepower on the defensive side.
So let me tell you how my thought process here. I looked at Washington. I said, okay, they need cornerback. Who's available? Max Harrison's available. Then I thought Emmanuel Forbes was a slender corner that did not get it done in Washington. They may be gun shy. Let's get a cornerback with more size, with phenomenal athleticism, oily hips, good speed, a little bit better length. And let's go with Amos. I think Trey Amos is a good cornerback. Makes good plays on the football, is a route matcher, and makes a lot of sense for that division as well.
Let's take a closer look at picks 27 through 31, according to Lance. And I know, Lance, you were just loving up Amos, just a little more further context on him. This guy had 3 picks, which was the most on the team, and he was a first-team All-SEC performer. But I think both of you guys, if I'm not mistaken, Lance, you had Emenwari also going to the Ravens in your mock draft, correct?
Yeah, I might have had him going there because he is a really good football player. He fits their brand, the ball, for sure.
Yeah. Anything that, in terms of the skill set, that you like about that fit?
Big, fast, physical, makes plays on the ball. He has everything. He checks off a lot of boxes. This is the dude that is the dream. And we think about putting him with Kyle Hamilton to the Twin Towers. I know Lance is down there in H-Town. He'll remember when Houston had the Twin Towers. It came Elijah Wan, Ralph Sampson going back and forth, just putting it down there. You're just talking about being able to really get after it, being able to just dominate over the middle. These guys being able to come downhill, smack people, I just love just thinking what they could be able to do.
Yeah, Sam Cassell, Kenny Smith.
Just everybody. Otis Thorpe.
Yeah. Matt Maloney. Do you remember him back in the day, too?
I'm
going real deep on this one. By the way, you're probably
asking, Matt Bullitt, too?
Yeah.
Everyone just
why not?
Shooting threes.
People are sitting there going, well, what about the last pick? Apparently, we got to show us a trade for this dude.
A handful of weapons at Dark's disposal. Now he takes a shot to the end zone. Got it! Touchdown! Pulls it out of his belly and fires his strike game throw, and it's another touchdown here for Ole Miss. My goodness. Dart. My, oh my, is that impressive.
Here's Dart. Dance it around and finds enough room to get into the end zone. Touchdown, Ole Miss.
Dart fires. Wow, what a catch by Trey Harris.
Oh, here we go. Jackson Dart officially off the board, a first-round pick, but not to the Eagles. Lance, you like the Saints moving up to grab him.
Yeah, there's a little bit of buzz around Jackson Dart being in the first round, and I looked at the second round. I said, who's got some extra picks? The Saints have extra picks. The Saints need a quarterback. You got the Raiders and Giants in front of them who need quarterbacks. So what do? You jump ahead of them into the first round. You secure the 5th-year option, and you use one of your additional picks to get your quarterback of the future. Now, we'll see if Jackson Dart is that quarterback of the future. But anytime you want to trade up for a quarterback, you're trading ahead of other teams. And when you do that, you need to have some draft capital on hand, and all of that makes sense to plug the Saints in with Jackson Dart.
Well, I mean, when I think about Jackson Dart, I think about Kellen Moore, what Kellen Moore was able to do recently with Jalen Hurts. And not saying that they have comparable skill sets, but you do see Jackson Dart push the ball down the field. You see him execute some design quarterback runs, some RPOs and those things that were a big part of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. To me, this is a really good fit. Jackson Dart has really excelled in Lane Kiffin's offense where he scripts the winners. Well, Kellen Moore also has a knack for being able to script winners. I like this. This would secure that position for the next decade for the New Orleans Saints.
Lance, I watched a fair amount of Jackson Dart this past season, a ton of splash plays, all these explosives in a Lane Kiffin offense. What is he, though, in terms of his ceiling as a pro?
Yeah, I don't think that's who he is as a pro, just flinging it down on those one-on-ones. I don't think that's necessarily projectable what Ole Miss does. But who he is, I think he's a guy, he throws with really good accuracy. And I think who he is a player that you run a lot of play action with. You let him work between the numbers, and you run ball control with him, and you ask him to go first level, second level throws, and then the shot plays with the play action throws. So I think he is definitely a game manager. He's going to be more of a snap taker than a playmaker, but that is not to say that he can't be a winner in the NFL. And I love what Bucky brought up about Kellen Moore. Finding the right fit for a quarterback, and in this instance, it's with the head coach, who's the offensive mastermind, Kellen Moore. You know, it's not a big arm. Jackson Dart is not an arm talent, strong arm quarterback. What he is a smart quarterback who throws with accuracy, and I think Kellen Moore can relate to that based on his play in college.
Most NFL coordinators will tell you what they want from the quarterback. They want great decisions, and they want accurate throws. And Jackson Dart delivers in those areas. And I know we're at a time where everyone is looking for the guy with the superpowers, the superheroes that can throw it all over the yard. But it's literally, can you make good decisions with the ball, and can you put the ball where you need to put it in these critical moments? Jackson Dart can do that.
Yeah. I'm disappointed in you. I thought you would have given me like this much love for the Matt Maloney reference with the Rockets back in the day. That's a good pull.
That's a good pull. NBA TV over here.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee first time on NFL Network a Matt Maloney reference has actually popped up. All right, just because you're not in Lance's first round in his mock draft doesn't mean you're not going to be a Sunday star. The players who didn't make 3.0 that are set to have stellar NFL careers. That's next. Oh, come on, man. That's good. Back here on Mock Draft Live, presented by Toyota, Lance's Mock Draft 3.0. Some of the notable picks here, I think just looking at the top, Cam Ward, once again, a little bit of a consensus across the board with our mock drafts going number 1. Abdul Carter, some think he's the best player in this draft, and certainly a guy that can go both ways. 1, 2, and 3, Travis Hunter, a member of the Giants. But I know this about both of you guys. When you review the tape, there's only 32 spots to be in round number 1. There's always these guys that pop, that grab your attention. Lance, who's that player that you think is going to generate some real buzz that you couldn't put in round number 1?
Yeah, and a lot of these guys I would personally draft in round 1. And a player who very well could go in round 1, I just kind of ran out of time, was Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. Gray Zabel's strong. He had a tremendous Senior Bowl, kept everyone from getting to the quarterback in the one-on-ones. He can play center. He can play guard. He's got good size. I mean, Gray Zabel has the profile of an NFL player, and I think he plays quickly and starts quickly. Whoever gets Gray Zabel's getting a day 1 start.
Yeah, you're talking about day 1 starter, but how about Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from Ohio State? The one thing that we know about the Buckeyes, those wide receivers play, and they play well at the next level. And when I think about Egbuka being in the slot, being able to run those routes, those option routes, getting open, his catch and run ability, just the physicality that he's able to bring as a possession receiver, to me, he's a chain mover. And as we're beginning to see JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba have an impact with the Seattle Seahawks, I think Egbuka is going to be similar in terms of being able to come in and make an impact right away.
And James Pierce, impact right away. Look, James Pierce could fall a little bit. There's concerns about maturity with James Pierce. I'm just telling you this. This guy had a phenomenal combine. He is a really dangerous pass rusher. James Pierce is going to go somewhere and potentially, shine. Now, he's got to become more mature as a player and everything that comes with it. But this is a guy who has top 15 talent with. If he falls out of the first round, there's going to be a scramble to come get him in the second round. I promise you that.
Look, you talked about his maturity. I'm talking about someone on the field who is mature. Maxwell Harrison, cornerback from Kentucky. This is a guy that has great instincts, awareness, toughness. He's a fringe, borderline first-round, second-round player. I could see him falling in that mock draft the next time Lance has the pen.
I'm almost imagining, like, we get to draft day and the next best available on day number 2 when we're all working together over those course of 3 days. He's definitely a name that we're going to throw out there.
Donuts on yam. Working together.
Okay, I'll go donuts. I can't have them, though. Not good for me. Rhett Lewis and his mock is next week. Thanks for watching.